Bryan Busby started as an intern in 1978 at KTVI in St. Louis, but it was only a few weeks before he was on air doing weekend weather. Bryan worked in St. Louis for 8 years before joining KMBC in Kansas City, where he is currently the station's chief meteorologist. Here's more about this broadcasting icon's career.
When it comes to severe weather in Kansas City, KMBC 9 News is the go-to place, and it's the go-to place in large part because of Bryan Busby.
He takes his job very seriously as a meteorologist. He knows that weather impacts all of us, and he knows that sometimes it can put us in dangerous situations.
We're trying to give information to help people stay safe and protect themselves, their family, and their property.
And now, as you see here, the signature is West 228th Street.
The way he navigates a storm for people in times of crisis. It's amazing how he does what he does.
It could be severe thunderstorms, it could be a winter storm. It's just always easier. Bryan just brings that organization, lightens the mood, and we can just focus on doing our job.
Bryan, not only the chief meteorologist of our First Alert Weather Team, the great conductor, you are also a public servant and a pillar in the community.
On top of everything he does in the Weather Center, I've also anchored so many things over the years with Bryan. The Jerry Lewis telethons, countless parades, the plaza lighting ceremonies.
Yeah, the cars are there. It's foggy today.
Your passion for people and for serving spans generations. Just yesterday I was out talking to a bunch of kids at school, and the teachers were telling me how much they loved having you talk to them when they were kids.
Those are the effects of your kindness and your expertise and your friendliness that our community absolutely loves about you.
The first time I met Bryan, I was 16 years old.
Bryan Busby, you and I have only been together at KMBC Television in Kansas City for 38 years. 38 years.
Butler was 62 degrees.
Oh, God!
Hi.
But that's a groundhog if you don't know it, okay? And Bryan did not know this.
I have worked with Bryan a long time here in Kansas City, decades in fact, and from day one I knew I worked with the best.
Electronically produced. This was the first one that was alive. It was a real one. Yeah.
In December of 1998, I was working in Norfolk, Virginia TV market, and my young little family, we were looking to head out and move on to a bigger place, and I got the job offer at KMBC in Kansas City. At that same time though, my mother, living in Kentucky at the time, that's where I'm from, was diagnosed with breast cancer. Then I walked into work one day and Bryan asked me, he said, "How's your mom doing?" I said, "Well, she's doing fine, you know, doing the best she can, and we're just taking it one day at a time." And he looked at me and said, "Why don't you go see her this weekend?" I said, "I don't get vacation for another 6 months. How can that be possible?" He said, "Go see her, we'll take care of it, and I'll work for you." I said, "Well, what about the news director?" "I've already taken care of it, Pete." And I just stood there, and I got kind of teary-eyed. And I'm thinking, wow, who is this person that I'm working under offering me to go home and visit with family? He walked up to me, put his hands on my shoulders, and looked at me and said, "Petey, go see your mom." We went that weekend, all because Bryan not only worked his shift Monday through Friday, but worked that weekend and then the following 5 days.
I've learned so much from him about being a chief, about doing the job well, communicating with people, and just being a nice person. Bryan's one of the nicest people that I know.
Bryan, you have mentored hundreds of meteorologists. 35 years ago, you inspired me.
As I got older and started my job search, it was only fitting for me to come to KMBC and work under Bryan, who has been a mentor to so many people over time.
Bryan, you are the best mentor. Thank you for guiding me.
I think the Missouri Broadcasters Association made a phenomenal choice in adding you to their Hall of Fame.
Out of all the broadcast meteorologists in the world, I can't think of anybody more deserving for this award than you.
Congratulations, Bryan. We are so proud of you.
I'm so glad you're getting more recognition for all that you do for us. I love you, brother.
Bryan, congratulations on your night. Continued success, and we'll see you back here in the studio on Monday.
I hope he tells us who the bear was. Bryan Busby, please come to the stage. It's all good. We're still standing.
I know, right? Wow. Mike, you said you're not going to cry. I'll make up for lost time. And same thing. Oh, gosh. Okay, the bear. First of all, I've been in broadcasting, as mentioned, when I was at St. Louis University, majoring in meteorology. And I'm old enough to remember this thing called floor directors. Remember them? And at a church in St. Louis, Cope Brilliant Presbyterian Church, there was an inspirational choir. And the choir director, when she wanted the choir to repeat, she would do that. And so when I saw a floor director do this, I thought that meant big finish. So the more he did it, the more I stepped talking. And the producer said, "Bryan, that means wrap it up." So back to the bear. It's actually a groundhog. Now, I don't really have anything against the groundhog, but it makes good television because I think that people put too much stock in things like the Farmer's Almanac or folklore. So I called him the soil swine because I can't even say his name. Yeah, it's a rat with a good PR agent, things like that, I say. And so they would superimpose a groundhog in chroma key. And the first year was only about this big. By year 4 is about 8 foot, if it was actually in existence. And one year, they actually programmed it so it would go back and forth in front of me and behind me, which means the TD would push the button in front, and then when it'd go to this side, push the button so I would be in front. And I said, "You guys have way too much free time on your hands to make it do that." So fast forward to that bit, and I told my coworkers that the over-under on that bit making that video was like 3-1. I knew that the groundhog would make it. About 2 or 3 weeks prior to Groundhog Day, I was watching on the quad. It was on Fox, I believe. Animals Going Wild, and it was a woman in Russia who was interviewing a woman who had a bear as her guest, and the bear had a muzzle on it, but for some odd reason, this bear snapped and started pawing at the interviewer. So this is back where the Weather Center had a chroma key, a wall on this side, a wall on that side. It was almost like an alley. And these were the big scoops that were very bright, so I couldn't see what was coming for me. But it looked like a furry 5'3" thing. And Ringling Brothers was in town. And so I thought my news director had hired a circus bear to come after me. And there was no escape. So you saw me lean up against, like these extra 6 inches are going to protect me from the circus bear, which is why I let out that scream. Yeah. Is that all right, Art? Now you understand?
That was a fine moment.
Yeah. It's going to live in infamy. To see your coworkers say such wonderful, glowing things about you is so humbling. And just as so many other folks who are inductees this year said the same thing, it's surreal, absolutely surreal. And some of the people you saw on the video are actually here, but the coworkers like my general manager, Justin is here, and my news director, Dano, and the liaison between engineering and news, Neely is here, and creative services, Jason is here, and then Chris Ketz and Johnny Rowlands, and I have an anchor team of weather people, 5, and 3, including me, of the 5 are here. And they didn't tell me. And I work with these people, and they're saying, "Well, what are you doing this weekend?" Yeah, right. So like the morning guy, Monday through Friday, is actually working tomorrow morning, so the weekend morning meteorologist, Katie Horner, is here. Neville Miller, who you see as the number 2 with me, was on vacation, and he was just not even saying, "We're working together in the studio yesterday, and you didn't mention a damn thing about coming down here." Man. But those are the people I work with. Those are the people I work with. They mentioned mentoring, and Annie said it very well. It's a privilege. I am an invited guest in people's houses. They make 4 choices. They have 4 choices every night. And if they choose me over the other 3, then certainly I'm going to take 3 to 5 minutes to talk to that person if they ever have an opportunity to meet me in person. What's odd about MBA is that I was looking at my list of proteges, and every market in Missouri, I've had a protege. KTVO, is that in Kirksville? Okay, I had one there. I think it is WPSD in Paducah, Kentucky. Had one there. Had every station in St. Louis. Currently, Gary Frank is at KSDK. Matt Chambers at KMOV interned with me. In the Columbia Jefferson City market, Zach Paul at the CBS station across the street. Matt Beckwith at Channel 8 there. When Koppler Communications started their Fox affiliate in Springfield, both the meteorologists were graduating from St. Louis University, 2 of mine. Had one at KOLR, had one at KY3. Doug Hetty down in Joplin for the longest time grew up watching me. KQ2 in St. Joseph, I had one. And in all 4 stations in Kansas City, I actually had meteorology interns or proteges. 2 that are still in there, Alex Conti and Joe Loria at Fox 4. And at one time, all 4 chiefs in Kansas City were up against me. So I'd have to be like Andy Reid and do the weather like this so they wouldn't see what I was saying. But mentoring is so important in that I've been blessed to be in this industry since 17 years old. And I have to tell you a couple of stories. Some of the other people were here, besides the folks I mentioned. My mom is here. My 91-year-old mother is here. I bring that up because for those of you who don't understand what's involved to become a meteorologist, 3 semesters of calculus, differential equations, vector analysis. By the time you get your meteorology degree, about 2 courses short of a math major. It is grueling, to say the least. And I remember having a tough time getting through physics. And I remember calling Mom and Dad in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm from. And I said, Mom, you know, I'm thinking about changing my major from meteorology to communications because I just can't hack the physics. My mother is a passionate woman. And my mother put together a phrase that would make Popeye blush and would make Shakespeare take notes. An adjective and a pronoun in the same sentence? Brilliant! How does she do that? And she told me that if I didn't change my mind, she was going to fly out using her American Express card and make me change my mind. And the reason that stuck with me is because at the time she was one of the first African-American female nurse anesthetists in the state of Ohio. And yours truly is one of the first African-American meteorologists who was degreed on television. And she wanted to make sure that if that was my dream, ever since this inner city kid growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, where only 2 people of color are on television, Bill Cosby on I Spy, Julia, Diane Carroll. There were no people of color who were doing news, sports, or weather, or being ourselves. And so 2 years after King got shot, their baby boy is saying, I want to be on television. She did not squelch that. Dad did not squelch that. They nurtured that. And I'm here because of that support that I got at home. And that's why I take this so seriously, and that's why I'm starting to tear up right now. People were asking me what I was going to say up here, and because Weather Guys ad lib, I decided not to, and I thought that there would be things that would be said during the course of the evening that would help me guide, and that certainly was the case. I do want to leave you with one story when I talk about how it is so important nowadays for us to do what we do. And I've told this story in the Mid-America Natus chapter, that sort of thing, when I got into the Silver Circle. I was invited to speak at a nursing home, assisted living. It's called John Knox Village in one of the suburbs of Kansas City in Lee Summit. And the person who invited me said, do you mind talking to the staff about severe weather coverage and where they should bring the guests and the residents to keep them safe? And can you also do one for the staff? But there's one lady who's a retired teacher who loves you. Do you mind talking to her? And it's like, sure, not a problem. This is many, many, many years ago. So I'm doing my speech. They bring her out, and she's got flowing white hair, beautiful green eyes, and she's like, she's very giddy. And this, just to show you how long ago this was, instead of a PowerPoint, it was hit the VCR and then stop the VCR. And so that was the speech that I was giving, and the oohs and ahs are at the right spot, seeing our tornado coverage. I mentioned Johnny Rollins in the helicopter, one of the things, or us doing tag team in the studio. And all the oohs and ahs are at the right spot, and then I say something like, thank you very much. I'm trying to get to her side of the room because they brought her in a wheelchair. But there are other people who are coming up to me telling me stories, or maybe they were too embarrassed to say something in front of me, in front of the whole group. And it was those old cameras that you had to push the button to energize the flash. Remember those? That's how far back this is. So long story short, I couldn't get to her side of the room before they took her back to her room. So I asked, is there any way you can take me so I can engage like you wanted me to? And we did. And so I go into her room, and it is just like you would expect. Immaculate, the sepia tone of her husband, World War II, and the kids, and pictures of the grandkids, and so on and so forth. She made us tea. We're sitting there talking, and she is just a mile a minute, and I can't get a word in edgewise. And she's talking about how, the family moved away, and I don't see the grandkids that often, and, it's just the way that things are right now. And so she's finally taking a sip of tea, and I say, well, it's got to be kind of lonely without having family or friends nearby. And she says, no, honey, I have friends visit me every day. She grabs my hand and says, you're one of them. I'm only on for 2.5 to 3 minutes, but we transcend that lens. And nowadays, more than anything else, just as was said by some of the colleagues before me, it is important for us to get information out, to convey the information so that people have some knowledge of the stories that we're trying to share with them. That is important. Don't lose sight of that. More often than not, now more than ever, what we do is important. And I am so blessed to be able to be part of that. Thank you all. God bless. Have a good night.